So Final Destination Bloodlines is the sixth film in the Final Destination series. And this film actually has some surprises and some twists to it. And I think what I love so much about this film is that it makes you care about these characters more right from the start. Because usually, like the Final Destination movies, they're fun because you get to watch, Death pull all his usual, bay of, Rube Goldberg tricks on deceiving all these young people into dying in the most weird and funny accidental ways. And, you get used to it, and the characters are kind of established as kind of, a little bit, annoying and dumb, where they kind of almost, fall into these traps. It's, Death doesn't even really have to try that much. He just sets up a few things here and there, and then everything unfolds. But these characters are established as actually being rather smart and emotional, and they love each other, and there's a sense of a family bond there. Because right from the start, first off, the film begins with just, taking place in the 1960s. So it's okay, we have a cool change of setting here. But the character who's going to experience this premonition of her death in this giant, big, accident that's going to kill dozens of people is Iris, and she's played in this scene by Breck Basinger. And you feel for her immediately, because you soon learn that, she's fearful of what's going to come, and everything is set up here where she's going to go to this restaurant tower, and just, everything's going to go wrong. All the signs are there, and she's fearful, and you feel for her, because you realize that, she's pregnant, and she's about to get proposed to by her boyfriend, and, she has a wonderful future ahead of her that's probably not going to happen after the Grim Reaper comes. You're like, this is sad. I don't want this to happen. I actually feel bad for her. But then, the carnage unfolds, and, we get all, the expected gory and ooey-gooey deaths that we've come to expect here that are very darkly comedic as well. Because, yeah, you feel for Iris, but then, I felt bad for her, but then I almost kind of, stifle laughter, a lot of these absurd deaths. This is a film where, in the many opening deaths, there's a scene where someone gets crushed to death by a piano. And it's just, you have to laugh at this, but you're like, that guy got crushed by a piano. Oh no, but Iris is probably not going to live. So it's I care about these characters. So I'm okay, yeah, there are stakes here. There's all the fun and over the top deaths, but also characters worth caring about, where you don't want to see them be mutilated and set on fire and turned into hamburger meat. So everything, proceeds the way you expect in a Final Destination movie. We get all the gruesome kills and the giant disaster, and then we get to the end of the scene where, of course, Iris is going to die, and then the camera's going to pull out, and it's going to be her, and she's going to not go into the tower. But then we get to that moment, and the camera pulls out, and it's not Iris. Instead, it's this other young girl, Stefani, played by Caitlin Santijuan. And it's in a different time period. It's modern day now. So it's wait, how is this happening? Why is she experiencing this very old premonition flashback? You're okay, we got to figure this out here. And of course, it of course leans more into her family line, that, her family has experienced these premonitions, and they've tried to escape death, and now her entire family, which has a very sordid history because of how Iris has been paranoid about trying to outsmart death for all these years. There's enough just drama set up before all the deaths and kills happen. Where, like I said, you do care for these characters. You care a lot for for Stefani and her cousins and her estranged mother and her father. You care for all these characters that you don't want to see them die, and you want to see them outsmart death. But the mysteries just keep coming in this film, because even when Stefani kind of tracks down a lot of this history with Iris and tries to figure everything out, and she thinks she has the pattern down, we see everything set up where the family's oh, we don't believe you, and then of course one of them is gonna die, and all the signs are set up that there's gonna be this giant fiery explosion, and a gruesome death involving chains and an overhead fan. We see all the signs it's gonna come, but then that character doesn't die. You're well, wait a minute, was the formula off, or was there something missing here? And it kind of ties in more to the sordid family drama. So it's all those mysteries keep coming up more and more, where it gets you more intrigued. And the fact that the characters are both smart and kind of care about each other, I think just the fact that it's more around family than friends, I think was a great choice, because then, you have like this family sticking together and, showing this love and appreciation for each other to try to outsmart a killer like Death. Because I think that's the key thing that these Final Destination films needed. It's like, if it's a bunch of dumb characters we don't care about, if they just stumble into these deaths, you appreciate more of like the spectacle of the blood and guts more than you care about whether these characters will survive. And Bloodlines actually gives, Death, some victims that are kind of smart. That they're trying to figure out more of Death's game, and some of them are actually wise enough to kind of like see some of the telltale signs about where Death might strike next, and they're trying to be a little bit more creative and smart with how they deal with this existential threat. Now, of course, if you've seen all the Final Destination films, you pretty much know where all this is leading. You can see, like, in fact, it's still bound by a lot of the same motions that you expect out of a Final Destination film. But that honestly didn't matter to me as much, just because I like these characters. I liked Stefani. I wanted to see her family survive. They're likable. They're lovable. They're smart, and they care about each other, and there's some near misses, and there are many scenes where you feel like, oh, they might be able to survive this. So there's a fighting chance for them. And the fact that, because let's face it, Death is, this unseen killer in the Final Destination films. Death is such a cool slasher villain, I guess, because he's not just some guy in a mask running around with a sharp object gutting up people. It's basically an existential force that you can't stop, you can't reason with, and you can't. Some characters try to talk with the very form of Death, but they can't do it here. It's pointless. So it feels like, you need to have smart characters to kind of keep this franchise going, because it relies on, like characters trying to outsmart Death and trying to avoid all these accidental deaths wherever they can, which is not easy. Like, even when they think they have it solved, something else will come and something else will try to kill them. In fact, one of my favorite cameos in this film is the logs from Final Destination 2. You remember the giant logs that came off the back of the truck and killed some people? Well, they make a surprise cameo in this film in one of the funniest kills. And I could not believe how excited and happy I was that there was a cameo from a natural object in this film franchise. And I loved it. I loved the way that it happened. But of course, there is, another cameo we have to address here. Of course, it's Tony Todd, back as William Bloodworth, in his final role, and Tony Todd, I love how the film treats him too, because he's been in enough of these Final Destination scenarios where he's wise enough to all of Death's tactics, and he kind of gives Stefani and her family like kind of the best advice, which is kind of like something you need to realize if you've experienced enough of this death, which is that we're all mortal. We're all going to die at some point. Death is going to come for us eventually. So all you can really do is just enjoy life. And I love the fact that Tony Todd, he really only has one scene here, but he has this giant, big grin on his face because, like, he's managed to survive all these movies just fine. He's just like, man, I'm lucky. If I survived all of that and I'm aware of what Death is doing, I think I'm doing pretty good. And you know what? I'm still alive. So just enjoy my life while I can, which I think is such a great note for him to go out on, because like I said, it's smart. It's a very intelligent note. Like, it's very wise about, how mortal we are and how much we have to appreciate life rather than just constantly trying to figure out all of Death's workings here. Like, it makes sense for Stefani's family to try to outsmart the Grim Reaper because, they've been targeted specifically because they've tried to escape what the Grim Reaper planned. But it almost kind of makes you wonder, though, how are these premonitions slipping through? Like, is Death just taunting them? I love just like the mystery of it all and just watching how it all unfolds and just appreciating the family drama placed on top of the over-the-top kills where you see people get, just get like gutted. They get like their faces ripped off. They get like telephone poles poles smashed into them. They get crushed by garbage trucks. They get hung from the ceiling. They get chopped up by lawnmower. All of this fun and over the top, and it's all extremely gory and bloody and juicy. It's all the fun stuff that you like to see in a Final Destination film, on top of characters that you care about, that are emotional and intelligent, and you care about them, which is exactly what I want out of a slasher film like this. So yeah, Final Destination Bloodlines, I can safely say that this film is my favorite Final Destination film. Not just because it has the coolest kills, which that opening tower sequence is just amazing. I love just watching that. I want to go back and watch the film just for that sequence. Like, the kills are great, but you care about the characters a lot, and I think I care about them more than I do in any of the other Final Destination films. So yeah, Bloodlines is easily my favorite of the Final Destination films.